When Stranger Things arrived in the summer of 2016, it quickly became one of the biggest shows at the time. Everyone, everywhere was talking about the comedy horror drama series that perfectly tapped into 1980s nostalgia. However, while I've always loved the show, it has felt like it's never escaped the shadow and hype of that first season. Understandably so, considering it is so well crafted with perfect pacing that fed into what we know as binge culture. On top of that, you have a well-established story, characters, and that iconic soundtrack. Sure, the following seasons are great, it's just that they've always felt too similar to the first, though the always improving production, acting, and consistent pacing always alleviated these concerns. Yet, another season of similar terrain would begin to become problematic. And that's why season 4 of this hit show is so satisfying, because it delivered at least what I felt the show needed to do. It matures with its audience by delivering much needed nuance and explores far more serious topics than ever before, all while retaining the whimsical soul of the show. Stranger Things is at its best right now. This season does a brilliant job of moving Stranger Things forward whilst layering previous elements of the story, providing a much more solid narrative to be invested in. One of the main ways that it achieves this is by introducing an entirely new villain who is at the center of everything. For some time, the villains of the show have not had a face. They've come across as two-dimensional characters who we're told are bad and do terrible things. For example, remember the Dr. Brenner of season 1 to 3 where he came across as a cruel man that just wanted to exploit the power of 11? Or even the Mind Flayer, who seemed like a mindless entity void of layers as to why he wanted to be the villain. Well, this season reveals their motives, with Vecna being the reason why Brenner was pushing 11 as hard as he was, and why the Mind Flayer is so obsessed with pursuing 11. Sticking with Brenner for a moment, it's really incredible how they flesh him out through simple humanization. Funny enough, I say simple, but it's actually quite complex. This is done throughout, but the effects of humanizing Brenner are accomplished in the opening 8 minutes. Before the actual reveal of his face, a great deal of characterization is delivered by simple body language cues. Remember, as I noted in the intro to this video, the ever-improving production? The cinematography and editing of this series has always been sharp and eye-catching, just as it is here. Focusing in on the precision of Brenner going about his daily business exemplifies to the audience that he is a man of focus and control. More importantly though, this flashback provides the much needed context and perspective we lacked when the series began, since we are shown he is, or more so was, a man that cared for his patients and work. Even in his own way, he still cares about 11, but as his body language indicated, he is an over-possessive and demanding man. These flaws are leaned into, as we see the questionable methods he uses to attain results and exert control. One of the main victims of this was One, who was already a troubled kid that became further frustrated with how Brenner treated him. This eventually leads to his defeat at 11's hands, which now contextualizes all aspects of previous seasons. Brenner forcing 11 to do these bizarre tasks was not for power, or at least not for the sole purpose of it, as his main motivation was human, to reconnect with someone he knew and cared for in his own way. That's impressive. We wouldn't have any of these layers of humanization if we had not had the introduction of number 1 and 11's trauma. The show is not rewriting Brenner as a lovable character too, just acknowledging he had good intentions but got lost in his execution. Even 11 now just sits with him in his last moments, which makes sense as he's not the absolute two-dimensional monster we thought he was. But what won't make sense is for her to satisfy his wish to soothe his own conscience. That would be too much. I could never have imagined an ending like this for Dr. Brenner, and that's a testament to how well they fixed this problem, this big problem this series had, the lack of depth and nuance its villains used to have. Speaking of which, Vecna has already ascended to top-tier villain territory, for the many reasons I listed above, but also because of the stakes he adds to the series, such as the mature themes and the development he brings. Vecna is the walking metaphor for anxiety, depression, and suicide. He literally targets individuals going through these very emotions. As a result of these serious ideas, the writers give their full attention to carefully fleshing them out by having one of the main crew be the prime target. Max becoming a victim of Vecna was a smart, bold move by the Duffer Brothers that makes perfect sense. Of course, she lost her brother Billy, who may have been a terrible human being, but was ultimately humanized with one of the best sequences of the entire show. This allowed the writers to believably transition Max from the brave, bold, courageous girl she was, to yes, still having those aspects, but now being far more cynical and, simply put, unhappier. It's difficult and uncomfortable to watch Max exhibit all the signs of depression, grief, and suicidal thoughts. She closes her friends out, she feels like an outsider of the crew now, and the person with which she shared the strongest bond, well, they also feel like strangers to each other. Admirably, Lucas does his best to reach out, but that's not enough at the moment. Even in the Dear Billy episode, we see him plead to her to just talk to him, but like many in the real world, she feels far too uncomfortable to do so. This is mature writing that doesn't gloss over these real dark realities with Hollywood resolutions. Even after she escapes Vecna in what can be only explained as the Stranger Things moment, the best scene of the entire franchise, pumping the most befitting and powerful song as she runs for her life in order to live, to want to live. In fact, let me just say that the Duffer Brothers got it so right that they even made the song itself ascend back into pop culture relevancy. Even though it could have been a justified point where many writers would have said the character is safe, the Duffer Brothers don't. Max is still haunted by Vecna, her depression and thoughts of suicide. She seems to be getting better, but the problem doesn't go away with a quick snap of the fingers, just like many writers make it seem. This help makes Vecna's presence felt throughout the show, which in turn affords the writers time to show the effects of very serious ideas on characters like Max. If I wasn't clear enough, the show has brilliant character work. A testament to that is the fact that days before the final volume came out, the entire world was on edge about the safety of certain characters, none more than Steve Harrington. Who would have thought that the guy that seemed like the stereotypical jock had a heart and the courage of steel to face any threat, becoming effectively the dad to the main ensemble of kids? This ability to have us invest in every character is present in the new additions too. Every new character that was not a part of the original crew in Season 1 has been a fantastic addition. Like all of them, especially the flawed but complex Billy, lovable geek Bob, and now Eddie Munson. What a splash he made this season. His arc from being the weird misfit that to the world is a satanic cult leader bringing havoc to Hawkins, to then being the hero that saves the people who hate him, is great. The writers give him many brilliant scenes, plenty of meme material, and also fist-pumping gorgeous scenes. Like this shot, it's just as epic as the song he's playing in the moment. Eddie Munson ripping a guitar solo in the Upside Down is as cool as a moment any character can get. Oh, and I love the fact that the main weapon against the big bad that is Vecna is music. Isn't that just poetry at its finest? One of the main aspects that plucked Stranger Things from the herd was its nostalgic synth soundtrack. And rightly so, it's outstanding. For the show to then come full circle and embrace that speciality left me with a warm smile on my face. Regardless, I'm yet to touch on the ragtag crew, the main ensemble, and for the most part, they're just as likable as they were from the beginning. They all embody so much charisma, and the directions their characters take afford the talented young actors to deliver some emotional, heartbreaking moments. Like, you're a monster if you weren't feeling some way when Dustin was pouring his heart out to help Eddie's father move on, but to also help himself grieve. For all that praise though, notice I said, for the most part. Mike is a double-edged sword. Sometimes I really like his character, and sometimes he comes across as annoying and oblivious. For someone who's supposed to be the heart of the crew, he's really unaware of his best friend crying his eyes out right next to him. Now look, Season 2 Mike is the best version of him. I won't hear it any other way. He was always there for his friends, but he also had flaws and was still annoying. But at that time, he was a kid and he was missing someone that was very special to him, so it made perfect sense for him to be the way he was. Season 3 made him grow, which was fine, except the execution is a tad rushed, but it still made it work and it was still good. 4, on the other hand, he just seems more the same, as if he forgot the lesson he learnt at the end of Season 3, that Will felt left out. I mean, literally, it's a very similar thing. He also had little impact this season besides his Toku no Jutsu moment that would leave Naruto-sensei very proud. All jokes aside, I love his character. He is well written, but aspects of his development are definitely always rushed or overlooked. On a more positive note, I'm sure we were all happy to finally see Chopper become a reality. Fans have rightly so been anticipating the day the two would get together, since it always felt right. But then Bob happened. And I don't mean that in a bad way, or at least not anymore, as we quickly came to love his character, so it made sense and was believable why Joyce would be with someone like him. Essentially, it didn't feel like the Duffer Brothers were adding filler to delay what many fans would say was the inevitable coupling. In fact, I believe they delivered this moment at the perfect time. Not a season earlier, not a season later, but at the right time. The finale of the season, Piggy Bank, makes use of its movie runtime to turn into a blockbuster epic. Literally, it had it all: compelling character arcs, emotional moments, rich cinematic music, tense action, and mouth-watering cinematography. Like, how does this shot even exist? It's incredible. The actual reveal to go along with this chaotic beauty is grand. As I touched on earlier in this video, the reveal redefines how we viewed the Mind Flayer and certain events with greater purpose, aspects that were sometimes lacking. Why was the Mind Flayer so obsessed? Well, because of Vecna's goal against 11. Now, dialogue interactions such as Billy's is also given further weight. This is great storytelling that elevates Stranger Things beyond the pedestal people put it on before. However, not all is phenomenal with the finale of Season 4, since there are problems that I believe could have been much worse, but they're problems nonetheless. And that is simply the death toll. Before Volume 2 released, it was pretty public that the Duffer Brothers hinted that multiple characters would die. The internet ran wild with this. The aforementioned meme of Protect Steve was born here. By the time it released, we saw that yes, characters did die, but none of the main crew. Max's death was something that I felt could have been kept. Caleb put in a convincing, heartbreaking performance, and well, she had passed into that terrain of death. Yet, they didn't leave it at that, and they chose to bring her back. That feels like a waste, but fortunately, and this is why I'm a bit indifferent about this piece of criticism, they at least gave some sort of compromise by making sure that the consequences of her situation, where she died, are ever present. By the way, what is it with whoever's new always getting killed off? That's something that's becoming a weird pattern that needs to be addressed in the future. And well, with only one season left, I'm not sure they can. Regardless, Stranger Things has simply grown up. Sure, it was always an adult show that was accessible to younger people, but it now more than ever embraces horror aspects, mature themes, and complex characters. Season 4 is at its best. It offers you the comedy that gets us chuckling, but now it also offers the dread that was always missing. This season, we feared those who we become close to potentially dying, and that's because we had real villains and real stakes. Within just this season, they've introduced an antagonist who, if the ending lands, can become one of the best antagonists in television. Everything about this show has really changed. I'm so very happy and excited that the Duffer Brothers won't be rushing themselves to release the final season. This iteration, this season, got it so right. Simply put, it's exactly what it needed to be.